But you do not want to miss this. We're talking big things here. We need your opinion.
I think you can hear me now. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yes. Good morning.
So my name's Jono.
Yes, Jono.
This is Dan.
I'm Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
And we're discussing the word voluptuous because I came on and I said to Dan, oh, my hair's looking particularly voluptuous this morning. And then I thought, well, actually, I don't actually know what that word means. And so we Googled it. Like, I just thought it was a way to describe, like,
it means you have big boobs.
that's what I thought. Like, what comes to mind is like Beyonce, or or like a big bum, like a big round bum.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably accurate. I mean, not that I have that, but that's the definition of the word. Probably not a great use of the word for describing one's hair.
Yeah. I would say so. Yes.
You know, sometimes things come out of your mouth like, did I just say that? My hair's voluptuous. I did.
Well, your hair is certainly more voluptuous than mine.
But your beard's voluptuous, Dan.
Oh, thanks. I think.
Let's stop using that word now.
Yeah.
Deal?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Joe, I know you do a lot of these things, and you know, I don't know if you've done any background, but we're really casual, and we're just going to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything there for you that you need to get out of the way that you need to hand to us to be here and be free?
No, I don't think so. I'm all good. I've been out all day running a chainsaw, and so I'm looking forward to sitting at the desk and taking a little bit of a rest.
There's nothing like it, is there? Having a day on the saw or a day on the axe. It's a different kind of peace afterwards, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's good. It's good.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just start the podcast. Oh, hang on. Keith wants to say hello. Come on then, Keith. Up here. Keith, up here. Up here. Come here. Keith, come here. When he's allowed to jump up, he won't. This is my Labrador. This is Keith.
Oh, look at him.
There he
Oh,
is.
wow. Hi,
Hello, Keith.
Yeah.
He's coming in. All right, now go outside. Good boy. Have you ever had this started on a podcast before, Joel? Just
not just like that. No.
good.
He's a beautiful dog. My goodness, what a beautiful dog. How old is he?
He's only just about 11 months. He's only a baby.
Oh, wow. Well, Lord willing, you'll have a lot of years with him.
Baby Keith. Awesome. All right, Dan, anything for you?
No.
You blurred your background. It looks mysterious. It's a good thing about having not much hair is when it does have the blurred background, it just hugs it nicely.
Nothing crisp.
Whereas mine's just sort of like, you know, it does crazy things. But anyway. All right, everybody, welcome to a very special episode of the Plant a Seed podcast. This morning, Dan and I are joined by the one and only Joel Salatin, all the way from, where exactly are you, Joel?
I'm in Virginia. Yeah, I'm in the U.S. in Virginia, which is kind of on the East Coast. It borders the Atlantic Ocean here along the eastern seaboard of the U.S.
Wow. And of course, now what's there for me is the song West Virginia, but I'm just going to park that now and be here with you. So, Joel, why don't you tell us, the listeners, a bit about yourself so that we can get a sense of relatedness to you and who you are?
Well, sure. So, I'm a full-time farmer, and we came to the farm here when I was 4. My family had been in Venezuela. My dad was in the Navy in World War II, always wanted to farm. But Midwestern boy, no money. How do you start a farm? So he went with a corporation to Venezuela as a bilingual accountant after World War II, bought a farm and married mom. They had us 2 boys. And in 1959, there was a junta and the ouster of Pettis Jimenez and anarchy, and the machine guns came in the back door. We fled the front door, lost everything, and came back to the U.S. Dad was there 12 years. Mom was there 10, and I was 4 when we came back. I spoke Spanish before English. And Dad left his heart there. He wanted to go back, and so that's why we settled here about 3 hours from Washington, D.C. He was hoping that when things settled there, that we'd be able to go back, and of course we never did. But we looked at farms kind of within 3 hours of Washington, D.C., and settled here on the cheapest, most eroded, gullied rock pile that we could find, and started the long process of redemption. And Dad was an accountant, Mom was a school teacher, and of course for 10 years every dime went to pay off the mortgage of the farm. And, Dad was 42 when we lost the place in Venezuela. And I well remember when I hit 42 thinking, man, if I lost it all, would I start over again? And, Tom Brady, the quarterback, is 44. That's pretty legendary, for playing professional football. But for a farmer to lose everything and then start over at 42, I had a lot of respect for Dad, after that to start over. And so we did. And we basically had a glorified homestead for those first 10 years. Dad was very innovative, very, very, very entrepreneurial, innovative. And as an accountant, he realized that the chemical monoculture, feedlot silo, heavy metal, process, you couldn't do that as a small farmer because the margins were too small. And so he realized very early we needed to brand, we needed to direct market, we needed to get a higher margin. And so when I was 10, I had my first chickens and started selling eggs to neighbors and stuff, people at church and a couple schools, and had a route. And we started selling it was a holdover from the Depression era. It was called the curb market. Today we have farmers markets, but back then it was a curb market. And the difference between the curb market and the farmers market was that the curb market enjoyed a special dispensation grandfathered in to be free of all government food safety regulations. So we could actually butcher a cow in the backyard and sell the steaks, in there with no regulation. We could sell butter and cottage cheese and home processed, pies and quiche and all this stuff. And so I cut my teeth on this as an early teen. It was a Saturday market, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. I did that from when I was about 14 all the way till I went to college every Saturday, 52 weeks of the year, up at 4:00 in the morning to be down at the curb market. But we were just ahead of our time. We were ahead of our time by about 15 years. This was in the early 70s, 1970 to 75 or 69 to 75. And 15 years later, then things really started to develop in the organic, the alternative, sustainable ag community. So we were about 15 years ahead of our time. But for sure, that experience as a child, really, of direct marketing, dealing with customers, making my sales pitch and honing the message, the display, the all that was just invaluable. And so when I came back from college, I worked at a local newspaper for a couple of years. I was scheming, how do I get back to the farm? How do I get back to the farm? How do I get back to the farm? I wanted to farm full time. I didn't want to do the part-time thing. I didn't want to do the work in town and farm as a hobby, part-time thing. And so Teresa and I lived, when we got married, we made an apartment in the attic of the farmhouse. And we lived on about $300 a month. We drove a $50 car. And in fact, we were married 20 years before we had spent $10,000 total on automobiles. That's how frugal. If we didn't grow it, we didn't eat it. We ate a lot of green beans and squash. We had all of our meat. We had milk cows. We had all of our cheese, butter, yogurt, milk. So we basically didn't buy any groceries. We bought clothes at the thrift store. what I'm getting at is we really live frugally, and as a result, we were able to save enough money in a couple of years that we could actually live for 1 year. And I left the town job. I walked out of there and I said, you know what? If I have to go back to working off the farm, I will, because I'm not too proud to do anything, from pushing concrete to digging ditches to washing dishes. But we'd saved up enough we could live for 1 year. And I said, we'll get so much progress in 1 year by being here full time that maybe the total time away can be, cut from 10 years to 8 or 15 to 10 or whatever. And as it turned out, that little nest egg stretched and stretched and stretched and stretched. And the biggest surprise that happened that we didn't plan on was that when we came back full time, we were here for every calf that was born. We were here every time the green beans needed to be weeded. So the slippage, what we saw was the slippage stopped, because in farming, timing is so important. Seasonality and timing. It makes a big difference whether you plant a seed. I appreciate the podcast. It makes a big difference if you plant a seed a week before it should be planted, or a week after it should be planted. And so by being here, we were timely on everything. And that slippage of being out of sync, of being weekend farmers, that slippage of, I've got to wait till I'm home to do that stopped. And suddenly that little nest egg we thought that would last for a year, it lasted for 2 years and gave us that, that running start to be able to be here. And then, from that little beginning, then, we got our customer base and started making a profit, and, good food, and people started talking about it, and we expanded. And so today we service about 8,000 families, 50 restaurants, several institutions. We ship nationwide, and we have about 25 people that earn their living from the farm. And we've never made a business plan. We've never had a sales target. But it's just been, germinating relationships, germinating good food, and loving and serving people. And here we are.
Loving and serving your plants and your people. I heard,
that's right.
When you were saying, Joel, about being, able to be there and be timely, often it's that lack of presence and lack of being timely that has us being stuck in the treating of symptoms, and the what we call the conventional symptom treatment agriculture, where things get out of hand and we have to act. But you were timely.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so being there, being present at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, it's the difference between success and failure. It's an amazing thing that happens when when you're in the right time, including harvest. I'm stuck on green beans for some reason, but green beans make a big difference in 1 week. If you don't pick them in 1 week, yeah, make a big difference. Or tomatoes or whatever. Yes.
I really appreciate that discussion about presence and being timely, and I really appreciate your background that you shared with us, Joel. What I just wanted to relay was just the power of your speech and just how much energy you bring, and how much authenticity, and that's sort of related to your presence. You're just right here, right in this moment. And what I wanted to bring it to was, at the present time, what are the questions, what are the things that you don't know and that you're working on in your farm, in your life? What are the questions that are open for you at the moment?
Wow, that's a great question. So, probably uh, probably the biggest one right now is just is just um, how to interact in this whole supply chain, the cultural situation that we have. Um, we have we have a tremendous interest right now, certainly in the U.S. and I'm sure most places, in homesteading, self-reliance. There's a lot of jitteriness. The pandemic, the economy, uh, uh, and of course, you know the immigration issue is all over the world. People, trying to get in someplace better or get out of someplace bad. I mean, there's just a lot of jitteriness about situations in the world, and I don't want to get political or partisan or anything. This kind of jitteriness is everywhere, and so so one of the big questions we're asking ourselves is how do we speak encouragement into that space. We've been wanting this for a long time. We've been wanting people to care, to become more self-reliant. We've been wanting people to get in their kitchen. We've been wanting people to have a bigger pantry, more storage of food, get volume purchases instead of just go to the store every day. Reduced independence, become disentangled from the system, if you will. And now suddenly here people are doing that. People are interested in it. They're seeking this information, and the question is, how do we best? We know a lot about it. That's true, but how do we best encourage people, reach into their lives, and inspire them to plant a garden, buy 5 acres. Yes, you can milk a cow. You can make cheese. How do we speak into that? And so, interestingly, last year we dipped our toe in the water. We said, with COVID and pandemic restrictions and everything, we realized, well, goodness, this whole relational, this ability to get together. We still want to get together, but we saw that conferences were being canceled, trade shows were being canceled because nobody wanted to go to a Marriott, a Sheraton, a Hilton, a conference center under HVAC and stale air and get together. And so we basically opened up the farm last year and said, look, if you have an outfit that you want to get together, how about coming here? We can be kind of outside in a beautiful place. We're not gonna be a pain about vaccines and masks and all that stuff. We're you do what you want to do, and we've got the best food in the world. We'll feed you, we'll love on you, and we'll give you a platform. And organizations signed up for that to such an extent that we realized we're onto something here. So we're having these gatherings at the farm, and we're already booked solid for next year with gatherings. We can handle 300 people or so, a little more, and we're just finding all sorts of organizations, not necessarily farm organizations, but just organizations, self-reliant organizations, wellness, health organizations, herbologists, acupuncturists, even trade associations like chiropractors. That they want to get together, but they want to do it in a non-standard, a non-orthodox, an authentic setting. And so our big efforts, changes, investments here in the last 2 years have been trying to develop our cooking capacity, our pavilion, roof capacity, our bathroom capacity. We've got a big worm bathroom developing here, where we're going to use red wigglers. We don't want to use water-based sewage, so we'll use red wigglers to do our toilet. It's going to be called the can of worms. So you go to the cow, COW, can of worms, can of worms. And so, we're trying to be cutting edge. We're trying to be world cutting edge on this next dimension of how do we create safe spaces on farms to take some of those billions of dollars that used to go to Hilton, Marriott, and Sheraton, and how do we let farmers share in that? But even more than that, how do we get our culture to understand that farms can be a place of informational, relational, and physical, healing and encouragement. You don't have to go on a Caribbean cruise. You don't have to go out to a wilderness adventure in a park. Right here on farms, we can have all of this ability to get together and encourage one another in safe places, and we can eat the best food in the world. And so anyway, that's kind of, it's a long answer to how do you interact, but that's where we are, trying as a farm to are trying to minister to what we see are the yearnings and the needs of a culture that's in a bit of a dysfunction right now.
That's
Wow.
Let's go into that. Like, what are those yearnings? Like, I definitely get that. Like, safety is one thing, but like, do you think it's beyond safety? Like, a lot of people probably don't believe it. They probably think it's just safety that they want, so they clutch to the first thing that they can get, whether it's a mask or a vaccine or whatever.
Yeah.
But surely human beings weren't designed to be safe, right? Like,
No, yeah, no. I think what people yearn for more than anything is first of all, they want truth. They don't feel like they're getting truth from much of anything. And no doubt that's one reason why this podcast is so well received, because people sense that it's speaking truth. The major media doesn't speak truth, and so people want a place. I mean, the safest place to be is someplace that is authentic and truthful. Now, that's not always the easiest message to receive. Okay. But you and I know that given, do I want to be in a place that's untruthful or truthful? I'll take truthful every day, even if it's hard.
yes, that's like truthful discomfort or inauthentic comfort.
Yes. And so people want the truth. The second thing I think that people want is they want to know that if they're unorthodox, that they're not alone. It's when you speak or live against the norm, against the orthodoxy, it can be a pretty lonely world. It can be a lonely thing. I mean, even families can be against you. It's in addition to bureaucracy and regulations and whatever. And so it's really important for people to get together with folks who share unorthodox views, to be affirmed, to be personally affirmed and encouraged that, oh wow, I'm not alone. And that's a powerful thing. We've had Temple Grandin here, the grand dame of autism, and families with autistic children to come and have a gathering and learn, I'm not the only one with this, and they can share techniques and share things that they've done in a non-judgmental non-prejudicial setting. And I think a third thing that people want when they get together is they just want good food. Communing together around the table is certainly, it's not as intimate as sex maybe, but it's one of the most intimate things that we do, right? We break bread together, eat together, and so one of the biggest surprises or things that really came out of last year's gatherings was, as we dealt with the organizations that host these things, many of them want to have good food, and they're always fighting with the dining services director at Sheraton or Hilton. Well, we can't bring that kind of stuff in here. What, unpasteurized cheese? No, we can't have that in here. So they're always dealing with the insurance and the bureaucracy of these big hospitality industries. Here, we can have a gathering. They don't even have to think about the food. We're gonna feed them pork, beef, or chicken, that we do here. We're going to source the rest of it from local artisanal farmers and growers here, and they don't even have to give a think about it. And so suddenly, from a business standpoint, that's an unfair advantage to be able to get an organization that wants to get together, and the people in charge don't have to pull their hair out trying to figure out how do we get authentic food in here. And so, those are all items and things that we're working on. And people want to know, that they want to know how to be healthy without drugs. They want to know how to be financially secure without Wall Street. and they want to be they want to have vocations and work opportunities that they can control, where they don't feel like the man controls them. And so those are yearnings in the culture right now, and we're trying to speak into all those things.
Man, one thing that really shone through, just as you were sharing, Joel, was people want to be taken care of. And it's rare, like imagine showing up to a place where you don't have to worry about the quality of the food. You don't have to worry about the, what's this person going to manipulate me with, or what are they going to take advantage of? What have I got to, protect myself from? It's like out here, we're just going to look after you, and you're going to enjoy just being with others.
Yeah. And so one of the things that's happening culturally, I don't know if you all are seeing it, but for sure we are. I had a big epiphany like 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I found out that sirloin steaks at Costco, which is like Walmart, it's the big supermarket thing. The sirloin steak there was more expensive than ours, and this light bulb went on because we've always been higher quality, a little more pricey than everybody else, than the supermarket. Than the supermarket of conventional foods, industrial foods, and so it got me to realizing. And of course, I'm reading the business stuff, and I'm what may be happening here is an inversion of resiliency and efficiency. I don't know if you saw somebody did an analysis of British Parliament over the last 10 years and counted the number of times the word efficient or efficiency was used versus the word resilient or resiliency. And what they found was, in the last 10 years, the words efficient and efficiency have dropped by half, and the words resilient and resiliency have increased, have doubled in usage, what this means is that there is a grand understanding within the culture that maybe efficiency is not a good goal if it's not resilient. And so and I don't want to, I want to act like I'm not interested in efficiency. I'm absolutely interested in efficiency, but efficiency without resilience is being efficient at going the wrong way on the road. If you're going the wrong way on the road, you're very efficient going the wrong way, but that's not very resilient. And so, and in fact, you don't actually become more resilient by simply slowing down your efficiency going the wrong way. You actually have to turn around and go the other way, right? If you're going the wrong way. And so, what I'm starting to realize is that perhaps as things, kind of as the pandemic creates a lot of stalls within the system. I mean, goodness, I'm trying to get two books. I've written 15 books, and I'm trying to get 2 of them reprinted right now. And the printers say we can't get paper. Are you kidding me? Paper? Something as normal as paper? You can't get paper? Or oh well, our press foreman, had COVID last week, so all the people that he worked with, they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. What I'm getting at is that in big companies, there is now a lot of drag. There's a lot of drag in the outfit because of COVID requirements, because frankly the bosses are concerned. Well, who's going to call the occupational safety health people on me this week that I didn't provide enough safety, for people? Who's going to sue us? They're concerned about litigation and all this, and that's a drag. And it dawned on me, I don't wake up in the morning. We've got a small team here. We got a team of about 25 people. I don't wake up in the morning wondering, I wonder if somebody's going to turn me in or somebody's going to be unhappy. No, our team is completely focused on vision, saving the world, building soil, healing the planet, serving people. We're small. We're friends. We're not just, my team is not just employees. We have potlucks together. We eat together. We build relationships together. The moms and dads can bring their kids, to work. They're all in the office. It looks like a nursery in there because everybody's got their kids in there. But that's the environment we want to have. But we're a little speedboat. We're a little speedboat. So what I'm suggesting is it possible that we are starting to tip over into a point where those of us, the speedboats, are resilient and actually going to become more efficient than the aircraft carriers that are hitting these shoals and rocks and can't turn and can't bend. They're not nimble. In business books, it's not the big that eat the small. It's the fast that eat the slow. It's about being nimble, about being can you adjust? And goodness me, with inflation where it's going, pandemic, if there's one thing that we need right now, is to be able to adjust, to adapt. And the more bureaucratic you are, the harder it is to adjust and adapt. And so I'm extremely excited that it appears that those of us who have been kind of, bumping around the edges with our little speedboats and being called, inefficient, and you don't scale, and, blah, 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 blah. Suddenly here we are able to adapt, to move. Yeah, right.
So yeah.
And we can compete better than we've ever been able to compete. And that's an exciting thing.
I'm getting a picture here of we talk too much about economies of scale and not enough about the flip side of that. Like, what are the things that cause more trouble at scale, and what are the economies of small scale, to be nimble and to be better at finding niches and fitting in and incorporating lots of different angles. And this might be a little bit going out there, but my background is in animal genetics, livestock genetics, and I see a bit of a parallel here in the sort of breeding objectives of traditional livestock, where the traditional breeding objectives are to make the perfect animal with the most meat and the most production capacity, but not a lot on resilience. And it seems to me this aligns with scale and also diversity. And I'm wondering, could you speak a bit about the genetics of the livestock on your farm and what you include in your breeding strategies and why, and talk about diversity a little bit?
Sure. Great question. And I think I'll address it kind of in two parts. The first part is what is doable, and the second part is more what altruistic. In a perfect world, because most of us we make compromises, right? And it's important to recognize we make compromises. For example, in our meat broilers, we use the Cornish cross, which is the double-breasted industrial, same genetics as Cargill, Purdue, whatever. And I've been crucified, out there for, you're using these, industrial genetic, birds. Well, our objective is we want to offer an actual credible alternative to the entire factory farming model. And my mentor, Alan Nation, who founded Stockman Grass Farmer many years ago, he's passed away now, but his little ditty was, in marketing, you can only be so weird. You can be a nudist or you can be a Buddhist, but a nudist Buddhist, it's just too weird and nobody will trust you. And so here we are telling people, you don't want to buy your chicken at the supermarket. You want to buy it from a farmer with a face, and you don't want to buy a chicken that's already cooked and breaded. You want to buy a real chicken that you have to cook and fix yourself. And then if you go down that path and then say, not only that, but you want a all brown, all dark meat, razor breast, slow cook, older aged, blah, blah, blah. In my perfect world, yes, we can argue about, is that a better chicken? Yes. All right. I'm not going to argue that point, but I can tell you from a marketing standpoint, you can only move people at a certain incrementally. You can only move people fast enough. And so to have a pastured chicken that's actually got grass in his gizzard and has oranger fat and is more moist, runs around, doesn't live on its toilet all day, and has fresh air and sunshine and all those things. I mean, the chicken is, even those industrial genetics, when it's raised that way, that chicken is light years substantially better. Now, is it as good as a heritage chicken or one of these, old, slower growing, I'm not going to debate that. In fact, I would say probably in my perfect world, that would be the better bird. But if we start going down the path of altruism completely, then pretty soon we don't have any customers. We've moved ahead of our market, and we go bankrupt. And we don't need to go bankrupt to prove that the world is not as smart as I am. We already know the world is not as smart as I am. I don't have to go bankrupt to prove that the world hasn't caught up to me yet. Now, so that's one theme, one sphere. All right. Now, we also have brood cows. We have rabbits. We are breeding our own laying chickens from our own old hens. And so we do breed animals here. And so what is the criteria for that? And that's where I can be a little more altruistic, because there our criteria is completely on health. Are you healthy? That's the only question. And the best way to determine health is longevity. In other words, the longer an animal, the longer a breeding animal stays productive, that's the single best determinant of health. And as you know, in the modern dairy breeds, I mean, lots of times the cow only has like 2 or 3 lactations, and then she's burned out because she, has so much milk. In the egg laying industry, chickens lay for about 10 months and they're burned out, and then they replace them and get new chickens. Beef cows have dropped substantially. In the industry, the turnover rate of the breeding stock is 3 times as fast as it is on a farm like ours, where we are looking for those 14-year-old cows. We're looking for those 3-year-old laying hens. We're looking for those 6-year-old sows in pigs. And so essentially we're looking at longevity, and we don't ask how big you are. We don't ask about color. All we're asking is, are you old? Are you healthy? And are you productive? And if you're old, healthy, and productive, we want your genetics. That's basically what we're asking. It's interesting that in the Dan, you certainly hit the nail on the head when you said that the perfect animal in the industry is, the one with the most meat and the most production capacity. What's happened especially in the beef cattle industry, is that the fabricators are driving the genetics. And so we've got, our cows tend to be, 1,000 pounds, 1,050 pounds, small cows, little short legs, we call them barrel on toothpicks. We want a barrel on toothpicks. Whereas the industry, I mean, goodness, there are cows around here that are like 1,800 pounds. They're like a Sherman tank. They're massive cows. Well, why do farms have, and those cows, by the way, have hip problems, leg problems, fertility problems, birthing problems, all sorts of issues. And why do farmers have those great big cows? Why have they gone into these great big cows? And it's because the processors will pay more for those cows because it's more efficient to cut big pieces and more pieces than it is fewer pieces and smaller pieces. If you're trying to pile up pounds of material, it's a lot more efficient to do Duplos than Legos. And so what's happened is the fabrication industry, the processing industry, has incentivized an animal that is completely incorrect for longevity and health on the farm. And instead of fighting against it, farmers have bought into it and then have great big veterinary bills and everything else. I mean, we have 1,000 cows. We have, we raise 800 hogs a year. I mean, this is not a small operation, and we do not have a vet bill. I mean, we don't have a vet bill. There just isn't. Okay. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying we don't have a vet bill. I mean, now, do we have a sick animal? Yes, we do, once in a long time. But, anybody that's raised plants or animals, they don't all make it, right? But our level of sickness and problem is just, it's almost it's so non-existent that we don't even, we maybe use a vet, I don't know, once every 3 years or something like that. I mean, we just don't use them. We don't
breeding sickness into your,
no.
Like a lot of people will just, for the sake of keeping their animals alive. And, it's a perfect scenario that you painted, Joel, of, let's give you animals that are, really dependent on needing to have treatments regularly. They're high performers, but they'll cost you a bit, and there'll be a reliance on certain products. Like there's certainly industries in New Zealand, especially the dairy industry, where animal health costs they're just year on year, they are just increasing. It's the one cost that doesn't decrease is animal health. And those that have been in the industry for a long time, they're not asking the questions of why. They just keep looking at the pamphlet of, what are the best sires for me to put across my animals, and the vet bills are horrendous. Like there's not many days where there's not a vet on farm, let alone weeks or months or years.
Yes, and I think that speaks to localized decision making. When you the more we rely on distant decisions on our own farms, the more we get into this kind of regimented recipe idea, and localized conditions are real. I mean, that's one of the reasons so many breeds use geographic names, Scottish Highlander, Guernsey cows, right? I mean, they have geographic notations because that animal was adapted and selected over centuries to that local situation. And so the more we bring onto our farms, as you said, with pamphlets or with expertise that is not respectful of localized conditions, we then deny ourselves the chance to make decisions that are truly completely nuanced to our local situation. I mean, I think you'll appreciate this. A clover seed will stay viable for up to 1,000 years in the soil, and that's always just amazed me. So imagine this red clover plant, and it grows this year, makes a seed. The seeds fall on the ground, and in 2022, next year, the seed says, I don't think I'm going to sprout this year. And in 2023, it says, I don't think I'm going to sprout this year. And don't worry, I'm not going to go all 1,000 years. But imagine, 100 years, 21, that little clover seed says, I don't think I'm going to sprout this year. And this goes on until year, 783. And year 783, that little clover seed says, yes, conditions are right. Everything is good. I'm going to sprout this year. Now, that is what I call localized decisions. That is local understanding, a sense of place and understanding, and that's real wisdom. And so that's what we want to actually cultivate on our farm, is just a localized understanding and context in hyperdrive.
Like we're not giving our animals or our plant genetics an opportunity to adapt, because we're constantly replacing. And like we know, like you said earlier, Joel, about you get the conventional sort of bred chickens. Well, I'm clear that regardless of genetic makeup at birth, genetics will adapt to their environment. Yep. Based on gut flora, based on environmental climatic conditions. But like every year in New Zealand, we keep sourcing our genetics from elsewhere, and the turnover of stock is so fast that we actually don't get an opportunity to adapt.
Yes, there's a very successful cattle breeder here in the U.S. named Kit Pharaoh. And he has, I don't know what, 5,000 cows. He's out west, has he rents land. I think he says he has 100 landlords that he rents lands from, and he sells hundreds and hundreds of bulls. And one of his maxims is that if we had never ever selected a bull from a cow younger than about 12 years old, Yeah, if the only thing we did was select bulls from cows that were more than 12 years old, we'd probably almost not have a veterinary requirement in beef cattle in the country. But what we do is, as you said, we have this turnover. It's all about young. It's all about youthfulness. But the problem with young and youthfulness is it's unproven.
Mhm.
And so you show me a cow that's been a productive member of your herd, whether it's dairy or beef or whatever, for 12 years. There is a specimen that is completely adapted to your local situation, and at the end of the day, that not only is your most resilient genetic, but at the end of the day, it's actually your most efficient too, because there is a point at which resilience becomes the optimal efficiency.
Probably the only efficiency that an animal's concerned about. Like, do we think an animal's that concerned about, efficiency? I mean, sure, efficiency, like it's not going to walk the long way to the trough. But, genetically, we're here to survive, aren't we? Every organism.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So the cow is thinking, she's only thinking about how do I flourish? How do I flourish in this environment? She doesn't want to be sick. She doesn't want to feel bad. She doesn't want to have hip displacement or hoof problems. And so she's simply thinking, what can I do, be, or eat that gives me a flourishing life? And that's all she's thinking about. And so if we would let her and encourage her to make those decisions, and realize that there's wisdom in letting her take the lead on that, then we will profit, not only prosper, but we will profit as a result of viewing the cow as our team member and not our slave.
I like that. Team member, not our slave. I want to ask a question now about the climate crisis, because I imagine being a regenerative farmer, for to use a term, there's a lot of sort of hype around that this is a solution for climate change, or that there's enormous carbon benefits to the way these production methods. Can you tell me what a Christian, libertarian, environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer's take on the climate crisis is, please?
Oh, wow. Okay. So the climate crisis. So where I am on that, I'm a little older than you guys, and I well remember in high school being pounded in from all the science classes, that by the time we were my age, that we would all be in another ice age, that the planet was cooling and we would all turn into ice. And that was the scientific, kind of the scientific consensus of the day. Today, we're being told that we're all going to burn up and be crispy critters. So so when I look at something like this, I'm saying, what's the common denominator? What's the common with both of these views? And the one common thing is carbon. Carbon is the common theme. Where should the carbon be? It should not be in the atmosphere. The carbon should be in the soil. And that's where the two groups, I think, converge. And so what we want to do on our farm. So from 1961, when we took our first soil samples here, we were at 1% organic matter. Today, we're at 8.2% organic matter. And now I know organic matter is not necessarily carbon, and I'm a layman, I'm not a scientist, so don't throw stones at I'm confusing organic matter and carbon, but they're highly related. They're not identical, but if you're increasing organic matter, you're getting more carbon in the soil. And of course, there's legacy carbon. You can measure all sorts of these kinds of things. And so so what we have done here is by going to, there are a couple things. One is by going to a taller grass. And I've been to New Zealand about, I don't know, 6 times maybe. And so I'm not unfamiliar with New Zealand. And it's a wonderful place, wonderful people especially. But I'll tell you, from an ecology standpoint, that was probably my biggest disappointment in New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand presents itself as we're clean and green and we're pristine and the world's oyster for ecology. And when I drove and saw the avalanches, the soil avalanches coming off of the steep hillsides that have been deforested, that's not a healthy thing. And you can't have. And so I'm a big believer in a diversified landscape where you have water, pasture, and forest. And in general, I think that any farm should be about at least 25% forest, just for the macro ecological diversity that a forest can offer, especially on steep hillsides. Trees act as hydrologic pumps to pump water up and store it for later release. And so the hydrology requires both. We actually have a commercial chipper, large chipper. It'll take a 19-inch diameter material. So that's whatever that is. It'd be like 60 centimeters. I don't know if maybe I'm anyway. You do the conversion. Anyway, it's a big thing, and it will chip a cubic meter of material in about 2 minutes. So we can feed this thing, and with that, we do large scale composting. So whenever the cows are inside for whatever reason, of course, we have a couple feet of snow every year, and so there are times when we want livestock inside for weather protection. And when we do that, we give them a carbonaceous diaper of wood chips, and that becomes compost. We compost it. We turn it with pigs. Pigs do all the churning in there. We put the corn ferments in it. The pigs seek the fermented corn and do all the oxygenation and convert it from anaerobic to aerobic compost, and that becomes part of our program. So we have this carbon economy where we integrate the forest with the open land, and we're cutting crooked and diseased and junky trees, and in a sustainable way, so that there are new trees coming on, okay, and we're taking old ones and cutting new ones. So there's this regenerative forest going on, but that forestal ecology, the wood chip compost base, brings a fungal bacteria to a fungal environment to our pastures. Grasses like bacteria, forests like fungus, but the best soils have both bacteria and fungus. And so if we can create this mosaic of integrated forest and open land, so that we almost like like a paisley pattern on a shirt, where you have this quilt mosaic that stimulates this greatest amount of microbial diversity within the soil. And then when we graze much longer grass than most people would graze. Now that, in other words, the grass, we let the grass get, 3 feet tall. and even with a head on it. And you say, well, you're dropping performance on your animals. Yeah, we're willing to drop a little bit of performance because we gain all of that biomass, root mass, field mice, chipmunks, spiders, pollinators. We just had a Smithsonian study done a couple of years ago. They wanted to come and do it, and they found all 8 bumblebees known to exist in Virginia. All of them exist right here on our farm. That's very, very unusual. And I think the reasons all the bumblebees exist here is because we have this mosaic. There's always something in flower and something that's being grazed, and so there's always something in bloom for the pollinators to enjoy. And so those 2 techniques, taller grass grazing, and integration of woodland and open land as a compost carbon economy, those 2 things have dovetailed to move us from 1% organic matter to a little over 8% organic matter, in our time period.
So you're telling us that, I was going to be sarcastic there, but I'm just going to be direct. So a lot of people believe that animals are causing a lot of our climate problems, and the picture we're painting is definitely not that, is it? Like they're a requirement for carbon sequestration.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, all of the deepest soils on the planet developed under herbivores. The Serengeti in Africa, the Pampas of Argentina, the plains of North America here, the steppes of Mongolia. These were all large ungulates and herbivores. Even Australia, the flightless bird in New Zealand, the herbivorous flightless bird. I can't think of the name of it right. Yes. And so these herbivores, this pruning, this strategic pruning, is critical for rejuvenating the forage. The other thing is that under healthy pasture. And when I say healthy pasture, I don't mean a monoculture. I mean a diversified, multi-speciated healthy pasture. There is enough methanotrophic bacteria. So you can say that if you practice it, methanotrophic, so methanotrophic bacteria that will draw down the methane of 1,000 cows per acre. Well, nobody's going to put 1,000 cows per acre on. But that methanotrophic bacteria does not exist under corn. It does not exist under monocultures. It does not exist under feedlots, parking lots, and those kind of places. It exists in very diversified, healthy pastures. And so nature has a feedback loop on all of these things. And when all the pieces of the puzzle are working synergistically and symbiotically, there is no waste. And all there is abundance, because there's plenty of sunlight and plenty of vegetation to drive the decomposition, the ecology, the carbon, to drive the planet. But when we overgraze and we overcut the forests and we overtill and we overchemicalize and all the things that are there, then all of these synergistic threads begin to unravel, and we have dysfunction rather than abundant function.
Joel, it's a rather complex picture that we're painting, and with you having been brought up with your father and having already a reasonable understanding of diversity. I don't know if you named your farm Potty Face Farm or whether that was your father, but you've got an understanding of these basic ecological principles, and not many people do. If you came through and I'm not sure what it's like in America, but in New Zealand, if you came through any of the universities that teach that are renowned for agricultural, you know, research and studies, there's very little understanding of complexity, and it's mostly pushing monocultures and control and looking at soil on a mineral level and looking at what's missing and providing that. There's very little discussion on biology, and that is just the world that we were brought up into, and a lot of people were brought up into. How do we shift the dialogue to allow for these conversations of diversity to be valid? A bit like, how do we allow people to see without going full Buddhist nudist?
Man, if I had the magic formula for that, I guess I'd be a televangelist or something. But but the only way I know that I've been successful at moving a needle is simply to lead by example. My dad used to say, you can't push on a string, you have to pull on a string. And so my encouragement for folks who share our view, our worldview, and especially farmers, well, to the consumers, I say, get out on the farm. And that's why we have 15,000 visitors a year here to our farm. We do farm tours, we do seminars, we do these gatherings, everything we can do, because we know there are two ways to hook people. One is taste it, the other is to see it. And if you can taste it and see it, then you're really hooked. So that's the consumer end. On the farmer end, what we have to do is we have to be good. We have to be good at what we do. We can't be mediocre. Those of us who espouse these ideas that we're espousing here, we have to have better looking fields, better looking animals, happier employees. We have to be an attractive place. We have to do better. And unfortunately, in the organic regenerative agriculture community, there is still a tremendous amount of bare ground, of whining, of mediocrity. And I'm not trying to be, set myself up as something else, but we have a 24/7, 365 open door policy here at the farm. And I don't know another farm in the world that has that policy. Most people want a little bit of privacy, but people ask me, how can you stand that? I mean, people just walk through your fields, yeah. And the reason, and we have found that we started this to to encourage people to come, and as authenticity, that that we have nothing to hide. That's what we have found, is that transparency, we need that transparency to make sure we're not cutting corners, cheating, that sort of thing. And so it keeps us on our toes. It's our it's our teacher with the old, with the ruler here on ourselves, because all of us can get, we can get lackadaisical, we can get tired, we can get whatever. And so knowing that at any time, anyone could pop in here and see anything, anywhere, no locks on the doors, everything is open. We've got to run a tight ship, and that's a good thing. That's an important thing.
Sort of touched on a discussion Dan and I had yesterday, where we said that, just as a private discussion, we sort of created the idea of, and this was a talk, we were talking about how the world is going, and so much division and scarcity and fear and lack, and lack of transparency, lack of authenticity. And I came up with this crazy concept, like, imagine if your thoughts came out in a speech bubble. Man, would that shape the world?
Yes.
just all the time. And Dan actually there was two, didn't you, Dan? You sort of talked about the
contradictory.
yeah. Talk
Contradicting
about those.
yourself.
Why don't you talk about that, Dan? Like the two sides of the brain and how.
Yeah, well, I've just been really inspired by Dr. Ian McGilchrist, who recently put out a book called The Matter with Things, and he's a medical professional who studies the brain, and his message is that there's two sides of the brain, and the left side of the brain deals with the known, the pointy stuff that that you want, and can deal with in a very sharp way, and the right hemisphere of the brain deals with the unknown and is the open side of your perception. And so I was sort of saying, well, what if there was two speech bubbles? There was the left hemisphere's view on it. Right, we need to control this, and I know what to do. And then another speech bubble that was also transparent, and that was actually, I don't know.
Yeah,
I've never encountered this.
Yeah. Or imagine if.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right, and my son Daniel says that our weak link, our weak link is not resources. It's actually not money. It's not politics. Our weak link, I mean, individually, our weak link is constipation of imagination. We can't imagine. We can't imagine what we don't know. We can't imagine what we can't see. And so we simply lack the imagination to be able to imagine, could I have a farm where a vet never shows up, where I don't need a vet, can we imagine that? Can we imagine, a farm that doesn't smell, that doesn't stink? Can we imagine a farm that is almost, self-reliant for its fertility program, that doesn't have to bring in very little from outside, those kinds of things. It's just, most of us are we're trying to pay the bills. We're in the whatever, the frenzied, frenetic life, and imagination takes time. You have to set aside time to actually imagine things.
That's something I was struck by, and when I started watching some of your videos, Joel, was something you always said was, "Can you imagine?" Like that was something that always got me. Like, wow, like people really don't, do they? Like they really can't fathom the thought of imagining. Like, what is there to discover, and also like what is there to be scared of? Like something like, have I really been this autonomous for this long? Have I really had this little choice in my life for so long?
Yeah, that's really good. For example, probably here on our farm, so we own 950 acres. So that would be what, 400 hectares, say, a little more. And one of the things that one of our most important assets, but that nobody realizes or recognizes, is that over the years we have built permaculture style ponds up in some high valleys. So they're not streams or springs, it's just valleys. And when we have a rain event, a flood or a snow melt or something, then we catch. So these are ponds just up on high ground. And so we have 8 miles of buried water line that gravity flows from those high ponds and gives us 70-pound pressure water, like a fire hose, over the entire farm with no pumps, no electricity, no nothing. And so to how did that start? Well, it started by imagining, could we imagine a network of water system that didn't require electricity? Could we actually use terrain to our advantage and actually develop something like that? And so, it's a obviously we didn't do it in a day. We've done it over many, many years, and we keep refining it and adding to it. But that is talk about an asset to be able to have gravity fed, pressure clean water every place on the farm, not from a well, no electricity. As long as gravity works, we've got water, and we can go up to the ponds and we can always see how much water is in the inventory. We've got 1 million gallons, we've got 2 million gallons, we've got whatever it is. We can always see the inventory, and that's when I explain that to people, they just shake their heads, because they never sat down and thought, could we actually do that? To get, when you say get water, everybody assumes, well, we have to drill a well and we have to get power, and those are the assumptions.
You have to buy it.
Well, yeah. Well, what if you don't?
Have you got consent for that gravity, Joel?
Consent for the gravity. Yeah. Well, I always say, as long as gravity works, it works. And when gravity quits working, I'm going to be out of here. I'm out.
You'll be flying. You said, Joel, it was really inspirational in one of your talks. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing poorly at first. And I imagine that you didn't get that right perfectly first time for that gravity system.
No. No, that's right. And we started with a little prototype. I literally went up with a pick and shovel and into a little drainage that we had, and with a pick and shovel, I made a bathtub sized little reservoir there, that and put a pipe in it, and my little dam, and ran it down 300 meters, and came out to the end of it, and wow, I've got pressure here, and then the light started to go on, and you say, so how can we refine that? So we went up higher, made one a little bigger, and it went dry in a season because it didn't have enough water. So we made a bigger pond, and yeah, it very much incremental as we developed it, and that's the way you build confidence. Some people almost dream too big out of the gate. Sometimes you need to dream small out of the gate, and have some early success, and then and that will build your confidence. This big chipper that we have now, that is a long line of chippers. We've had chippers for 40 years, and started smaller and different kinds and different styles, and bigger and different things. And the one we have now, we actually rented it for 2 years. We rented it for a year for 2 years, and ran financials on labor, upkeep, what it would do, before we ever purchased it. So there is a place for prototyping, for what I call embryonic innovation, so you don't jump off a cliff and threaten the mothership. You do things, you make trials, you do experiments that are small enough to metabolize, and won't sink you, if they don't work. But everyone that's successful, you actually build up this equity, this emotional equity of confidence to, well, that worked, let me see if I can refine it a little more.
Like a baby learning to walk, it doesn't learn to walk without falling on its butt a few times, and it certainly doesn't come from crawling to let's go and run 100-meter sprint.
That's right. Yeah, it's all little parts. Yeah.
What's there for you, Dan?
Oh, I'm just really grateful for your generosity, because I can see like you're not getting anything out of this, but you're just giving us so much advice and so much inspiration, and so much just displaying where confidence comes from, and being authentic, and being an example that That's just really amazing. So maybe it's time to ask our final question. Do you wanna ask Joel our final question, Jono?
Yeah, yeah. And before I do, we talked before about what can we do, and you can't push a piece of string, and you can't make a horse drink. And we talked about leadership, being role models, setting the example, and a massive part of all of that is contribution and sharing. And although we say, Joel has shared a lot with us this morning and given up his time, human beings weren't put on this earth to have one-way interactions. I'm sure Joel's clear that, it's always an exchange. Like the organisms in the soil don't just take the carbon from the plant. They get something, the plant gets something out of it as well. And I think being, what we see in Joel is a willingness. And I think if we were all willing, wouldn't that paint a more beautiful picture in the world? If we weren't withholding, if we weren't waiting for some moment to, oh no, now I'm going to give what there is to give. A lot of people will die without having shared what there is to share. And what I see in you, Joel, is just a pure willingness and an authenticity to, it's beyond wearing your heart on your sleeve. It's we don't have to wonder what Joel is thinking, and we don't have to wonder, is there anything left? Because it's all out. So it's incredible, Joel.
That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, look, I'm quick to say I don't have all the answers. I mean, we have our apologies and confessions here as well. Everybody does, but we've had enough success that success is like inertia. It snowballs, and just like failure can snowball into depression and frustration. A little bit of success is like adrenaline. It's a little bit of success can make a snowball, a snowball of success. You'll appreciate that. I had a friend who was a dairy farmer, and he was despondent, not happy. Kids didn't want the farm, blah blah blah. And this is 30 years ago, and I just at a function, I just mentioned to him, I said, have you ever heard about these New Zealand nipples to feed your little dairy calves, where they suck up a vacuum, and make all these suds and enzymes and stuff and makes them real healthy? He'd never heard of it. So I got him the U.S. importer of these New Zealand little nipples for dairy calves, to raise these dairy calves. And he got a barrel and set it up. And the next time I saw him, he was just exuberant. And he said, it's changed our life, it's because his wife was washing all the calf bottles, and of course he had sick calves and all this. And he said, it just revolutionized our life. He said, what's next? What do you have next? We're ready for the next. And over the course of a couple of years, he completely turned that farm around. All of his sons wanted to come back to the farm because they saw an exuberance there, an opportunity. He went completely organic, and had happy, healthy. I mean, it revolutionized everything, and it all started with a little New Zealand nipple for the baby calves, and that's what success does. It snowballs, and it's really exciting. People, I don't think people have, in general. I'm not sure that farmers have big success stories. They have desperation stories. We're just trying to hang on in desperation, and they don't have, in general, feel like they have breakthroughs, breakthroughs of success. And so again, we don't have all the answers, but we have had some breakthrough successes, and I'm eager and enjoyable to share those with people, and you try your permutation of it, where you are, and see if you can have some success. It's all about, can we encourage success among good practitioners, good practice, good protocols, good techniques, so that we can do better.
Beautiful, man. Well, I'm going to end, Joel, with a final question, which we ask all of our guests. It's an interesting one. If you could go back and speak to your 6 or 7-year-old self with all this that you've learned and discovered and experienced, what would you have to say to that little 7-year-old Joel Salatin?
Oh my goodness, what an interesting question. I think that I would say, whatever you think is possible, more is possible. So don't self-limit, don't limit your imagination, because whatever you think you will do or can do or what's possible, it's always more abundant, it's always more vibrant, it's always more enjoyable, and so be quick to say can and slow to say can't. And all of us struggle with can't. I can't for whatever reason. I don't have the money, I don't have the talent, I don't have the information, I don't have the right this, the right that, the right wife, the right opportunity, the right place, the right thing. We struggle with can't, and I've had the same thing. And when I look at the biggest failures or holdbacks, they have been surrounding this, well, we can't. Well, no, maybe you can, and maybe that's something that you hadn't thought of. Just start with can.
Be
Wonderful.
quick to say, yeah, that's wonderful. All right, Joel. Well, look, really, Dan and I are just so grateful for your time, grateful for your stand in the world, grateful for what you bring to the world. I'll just speak for myself, Dan. You can conclude what's there for you. And just for me, Joel, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joel. It's been a really amazing conversation, and I'm excited.
Great. Well, thank you all for sharing this, for putting yourselves out there to encourage and inspire, and our world needs you. Carry on, persevere, and blessings to you. Thank you very much. It's been an honor and a delight to be with you.